a great staple in our community because this is where everything starts and stops. And Darnell is always very adamant about sharing and very passionate about sharing that when that house is healthy, when that house is whole, the individuals in the house are able now to go out in the community and be amazing representatives. But if that house is a battleground, you don't even have an opportunity to think straight about how you can help somebody else because you're always in survival mode, just trying to help yourself.
No, you're exactly right, and I believe that. And I mean, because I've been there myself. I mean, if you're started, you're starting to do whatever today, and then before you even get started, there's an argument ensues, or something gets said, or some conversation happens, like the crazy TV shows. You trip over some kids' toys, walking in the living room, walking out the door, and then that starts a whole nother conversation about, well, your kids, and then that first statement, your kids. See what I'm saying? Not our kids, your kids, and then when it becomes your kids and my kids and your kids, then it's a whole nother conversation. Now, you before you get out the door, you've got other things on your mind. You're on your way to your job, or your career, hopefully, which should be a career. And now you got to deal with that thought instead of getting prepared for what you're going to deal with at the office. Then you get to the office and something else happens. Now you've got a whole bad day. And then when you get back to the house, now you mad, just the whole day is messed up. And it started out probably way before then, because you should have, like we talked about 3 shows ago, talked about values, had values, and kids going to leave some stuff out, but maybe that's one of your just do's and don'ts. Maybe that's one of, we need to make sure we're raising our kids the same way and we're having the same communications, and, or, hey, okay, before we go to bed at night, we put up stuff. You know what I'm saying? If we're not having those conversations, and then what JT talked about, and we talked about those numbers, let's reiterate those numbers that I talked about last year. 40% of the married couples with children in the U.S. are forming blended families right now. 10% of women in the U.S. have had 3 or more marriages, divorces, or long-term cohabitation arrangements by the age of 35. And the first one I did, and this was the big one, 1 out of every 3 Americans is either a step parent, a stepchild, or has some other form of a blended family in some way, which means almost 100 million people. 100 million people. And that's a lot. I mean, that's an awfully lot. And so, the objective of the show is to get different opinions on different generations. Okay. So, Catriel,
yes,
I'm going to get it sooner or later, and Tony, you've seen this, and we talked about it last show. And I know you probably had more time to think about it. What's your thoughts on blended families, and what's your thoughts on what are some of the things that the parents should be thinking about when you're thinking about doing a blended family from your point of view?
Okay, so first and foremost, I fully advocate for blended families, right? Because you have some people who didn't come from, or like myself, like I didn't really have a father in the household, so my mom had a good boyfriend. I did appreciate their presence, right? But once again, I just think some parents should be a little bit more, I guess you would say, just care a little bit more about how the kids feel about the situation, because I don't know whether it was you or JT that said it last show, you're not just marrying the partner, you're marrying the kids as well. So, and like Connie said, it's like just like meeting everybody where they at. But sometimes I feel like parents, they don't, or my parents, they're more like old school from the South. So when they say something, that's it.
Yeah.
There is no giving you time to adapt, or, oh, how do you feel about it? It's just this what it is and this what it's going to be. So I guess,
well, that is that old school. No say, don't hear you. And if, out of sight, out of mind. But not only that, in a lot of cases, and you know what? Let's go there for a second, and because I'm gonna let Catriel say something. I'm gonna give you that old school thought. We're gonna take 2 seconds and talk about that, because back in the day, and of course I'm older than you. Back in the day, I didn't understand why my father would just say, "Just go do this." So, for example, we used to travel between Michigan and Texas. And when we did that summertime travel, he was in the mode of, you better use the bathroom. We're not stopping.
Not
At all.
But I didn't understand why. Do y'all know now why?
yes,
Why?
and still exists sundown towns.
Definitely.
Okay. Well, I didn't know the terminology of sundown towns, but go ahead and say why. Why did they say not stop?
Well, I mean, they probably knew certain cities and areas that wouldn't accommodate you, and
Or you might get killed
right.
in coming to. So back in the day, and I'm going back to what you said, and it's still passed down. It was just do as I say, because then it meant life or death.
Yes.
Okay. And but that type of habit passed on. It really didn't, it continued to my father. You see what I'm saying? And then it continued probably to your father or mother, because that's the way we had to be raised, because there was no, let's have a topic of conversation.
There was no rebuttal at all.
But that habit became across the board. Now, right or wrong, you understand what I'm saying? I'm not saying, well, I have to say, back in our day or my day, when he said, hey, we're not stopping, that had to be a right. I didn't understand why. If he'd have said, hey, this is my big picture. We go through these towns and we can't stop because we might not make it. Well, how do you tell a kid that, and have to explain it? But at the same time, if at a certain date he'd explain that, I'd have been way more understanding. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
So that habit became a habit across the board. I'm just saying for you, Tony, because a lot of young people don't understand where parents got that from. You see what I'm saying? Because it becomes a habit, and then that habit just goes and just continues. So yes, I agree with you, Tony, that parents should take more stake. What we talk about in corporate America, who are the stakeholders? Well, the parents have to understand, and let's coin that. Who are the stakeholders in the house? Children are stakeholders in the house. So you got to bring them in. JT, what do you think about that?
No, I agree. There was a quote that a family strategist gave, and I may have shared it before, but if my
go ahead.
age is showing, I'll share it again.
No, go ahead.
But she said that the effective communication of the why always gives a more favorable outcome. The effective communication of the why always gives a more favorable outcome. And Darnell, I can attest, I grew up in a home just as well, led by a strong black man, just like you. And there weren't any questions, even if you thought, and maybe your facial expressions looked like you were asking a question. You might have to, if you did the crime, you had to do the time. But I believe that as we get to a different day, and we see maybe some of the traditions that we accepted as good parenting, I think now in hindsight, we realize that there really could have been a little bit more done, a few more conversations, a little more wise. But then I have learned to extend grace to my parents, because now I understand that they were giving me what they received.
Yep.
And so their parents were giving them what they received. And so, not to really get too deep into this conversation, because somehow, some way, man, I always find a way to bring this up. But Darnell, you mentioned a couple of shows ago about how, we're really just 4 family members away from being the product.
Yeah.
And so then now, as we kind of look at it, well, oftentimes there weren't any conversations to the children because there weren't any conversations in the past. And so now, as we look at it in 2022, there are still some homes that are being led and parented with a hint of how children were raised on plantations. Even to, I had a conversation with a president of Lone Star, and we were talking about a book that he read that was talking about slavery and the traumatic effects of slavery. And one of the points that he brought out from the book was how if you would just go into a random grocery store and how you see other children that are in the grocery store, they're running around, they're grabbing things, and it's almost as if that child is able to move around about freely while we get to talk before we get in the store. Don't go in there, don't touch nothing, don't put your hands on nothing, stay right next to me. Well, that is directly linked to slavery, because your child could have easily been snatched from you if they were not next to you. So even in that thought, we are still in 2022 living in a post-traumatic stress state, because there were so many things that had not been addressed. And so that kind of goes back full circle to the statement that I made earlier about there having to be some type of healing. And I think I even mentioned last week about the benefit of therapy, going to a counselor, because I think that's key, because we may feel like we are giving our child the best love and attention and affection that we could possibly give them. And we could be, swinging at a ball, and we can be striking out every time. Yeah. And our children are left on the back end needing more than we ever could have given them. And that very well could have come from a conversation. So kind of going back to some of the things that Tony talked about, is that I really feel that before there ever is really an engaging in a whole new relationship, you might want to spend some time shoring up the relationship that you have. And that's that relationship between parent and child.
And not only that, if you think about what you said a couple of shows ago as well, JT, you might have said it again last show, is that a lot of us, and I'm not going to just say, our youth, but a lot of us have PTSD. And you've had something happen in a previous relationship that might have happened with parents, or the mom dating somebody and stop dating that person. And you don't know why they stopped dating, or they might have got into it, or it might have been a fight that ensued. I mean, a lot of things. But if there's no conversation about it, and then you roll into another relationship, and I think JT talked about it, and I think you said something about it too, Tony, with regards to talking about, when your mom was dating someone, and you're like, hey, and I had somebody that I did some research with. I'm gonna let them name it.
My favorite segment.
Hey, that's right, whatever. But the bottom line is, when I asked him, I said, if your mom starts dating, that's just gonna be a dude at the house. I'm the man of the house, and he's 15. You remember I had to have that conversation with him. I had to go to Webster, and y'all heard the man of the house is someone who makes full decisions and is responsible for the house, meaning financially, safety, the whole 9 yards. So I think I agree. So that's one thing we could take away. Our community's got to get past not wanting to see counselors or psychologists. We've got to get past that. That's number one. Well, number two, we got to get past going to doctors. Find healthy men, black men,
That's
women
in the black community all around. Just help. They just don't want to seek it.
Well, they want to seek it. I think they want to seek it,
or just don't know
but
how.
I think the history has passed down that knowledge and what things have happened in the past. And the bottom line is, so once you get into a habit, Tony, and Catriel, and it's the same thing, and JT will verify this. If I were to start putting my watch on my right wrist, and I've been wearing it on my left wrist for 17 times, after 17 times, it becomes a habit. And so our forefathers and mothers and sisters and brothers, they passed down these habits, and it's time for us to constructively break them. That's what this show's about as well. It's about changing us and breaking those habits. Because if we don't, who and when? Okay. And 100's always been about positive, positive affirmations, positive reinforcement, positive movement, positive change. So go ahead, Catriel. I'll let you throw some things in there. Me and Tony and JT said enough.
Well, I was just going to say that parents should also consider how blending a family will show up in their children, because a lot of times I think they're very dismissive of a child's new behavior, and like they're acting up in school or their grades are slipping. Well, if I have this new brother or sister and we're in the same grade or the same classroom and we're not even really vibing at home, then why would I even want to be in the same class with them? So I'm trying to do everything that I can to get switched or moved, or I don't want to sit next to them. If you have special things that you were already doing with your kids and then now you're including other children, they feel like they've been booted out the spot or they're invading in their space. And their position can also change as well. They could be a middle child and they were the youngest, or now they're the oldest out the group. So they feel like they have this whole responsibility on their shoulders automatically. Like, just, it's a lot. So I think that they should consider how it should show up and not just say, oh, they're just acting up, they're bad, I don't know what's going on, I'm just gonna beat you.
So just throw them underneath the boat and then say, well, and but again, that goes back to values. Now to be frank, as an older person in the room, no matter who comes over, that child or those should be respectful. You don't have to, so that's a value. If I walk through the door and one of your kids say, "Who the F are you?" Blah 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 blah.
Oh no.
What's gonna happen? What's gonna happen? No, just say what do you think? What do you think Mr. Joseph gonna do?
I don't know. That's an interesting question. What would you do?
I'll be like, "Hey, nice to meet you. I'll talk to y'all later. I'm out. Thank you very much." Because I'm not even, and I might not roll right then. But the bottom line is, I'm gonna be like, this ain't that step. And unless there would have to be some really crazy circumstances that I would be willing to deal with that situation, because of who I am. I'm respecting you. I'm gonna speak to you. I'm gonna be nice. If I come in tripping on you in the beginning, you know what I'm saying? You stand there and I don't speak to you, or I'm being mean or whatever. That ain't me anyway. Then I can expect a response from you, unlike, "Hey, how you doing?" I'm not saying, like Tony told us about the dude who called him. And Tony like, "Dude, I don't know why you even called me. What's up?" I understand that, because Tony had some preconceived conversation. Right. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But everything on equal footing. We just met. I'm just meeting the lady, and the children are tripping. Well, okay, they may be running around. I'm not tripping on that, But if one of them come up to me and just off cuff go like that, I'm thinking, yeah, nah. Because I'm already seeing that there's going to be some challenges. So
do you think if that happens, that maybe the mother or father didn't give them a heads up, like, "Hey, I'm dating someone," and then just... Well,
it doesn't matter. That's what I'm saying. Because the young person should be respectful anyway, right, if they're being taught to be respectful. To me, that goes back to being taught being respectful. If you're not being taught to be respectful in the house, then you're not going to be respectful later either. Okay, and we're about to take a break in just a second, but the bottom line is, if you got to be there. I mean, that's the big picture stuff, and it's also, when you come into values, what are do's and don'ts? What can you accept? Now, if he walks up to me and he doesn't quite speak quite the way I want him to, but he still speaks, then I can say, "Hey, how are you?" And we can grow. You know right. what I'm saying? Because bottom line is, he may just, right, he may be surprised. Didn't know that somebody was coming. Mm-hmm. But if he just, "Who the F are you?"
Or ignoring. I hate when somebody acts like they can't hear you.
Or ignored you.
Right.
Oh. Well, you telling me you ain't done that?
No.
Oh, okay then. Okay.
Well, I've done it a couple of times.
I heard
with my
that you
mom.
will look a person
When
up
need
and
be.
down. Yeah, I heard she'll look you up and down. Didn't we hear that from Catrell last time? If you walk
That's
in, she's
not
gonna size
ignoring.
you up.
That's not ignoring.
That's not ignoring?
I've acknowledged you.
You
But no,
acknowledge
that was when I was younger.
Oh, okay. Okay,
And
so you're
I wasn't much of a talker anyway, so my eyes did the talking.
Oh, okay. With that said, then we'll let Cohen take us to a break. But yeah, we'll start back there in just a second. Go ahead, Cohen, take us out.
KHSX Power 101.5.
We are family. I got all my sisters with me. We are family. Get up, everybody, and sing. We are family. I got all my sisters with me. We are family. Get up, everybody, and sing. Everyone can see we're together as we walk on by. And we fly just like birds of a feather. I won't tell no lie. All of the people around us, they say, can they be that close? Just let me state for the record, we're giving love in a family dose. We are family. I got all my sisters with me. We are family. Get up, everybody, and sing. Sing it to me. We are family. I got all my sisters with me. We are family.
You're listening to
Get up, everybody, and sing.
FM KHSX.
Living life is fun, and we just begun to get our share of this world's delight. High hopes we had for the future, and our goals inside. We know we don't get depressed.
KHSX Power 101.5. You're listening to Power 101.5. KHSX LPFM, Houston, Texas.
You don't usually get a stock tip from a 16-year-old, but I'm here to tell you about a different kind of stock. It's called Better Futures, a stock for social change that's not about making money. Instead, you invest to help students like me go to college. This is beyond a simple donation. It's the opportunity for America to invest in its kids and take an active stake in the future of the country. The return on your investment isn't money. What you get back is knowing you protected our potential. So one day, that potential can grow up to become surgeons and architects, executives and engineers, people who can change the future just by being a part of it. My name is Alicia, and I'm your dividend.
Invest in better futures with UNCF. Visit uncf.org/invest. A mind is a terrible thing to waste, but a wonderful thing to invest in. A public service announcement brought to you by UNCF and the Ad Council.
This is Reverend Ronnie Lister. You're listening to KHSX Power 101.5. You're listening to Kingdom Power Radio 101.5 FM, KHSX.
KHSX Power 101.5.
tacos of cheese and a large soda. That's $10,012. Please drive around.
10,000 what?
It's obvious you're buzzed and driving.
I've only had a few. I'm fine.
Yeah, the food's $12, but getting pulled over for buzz driving could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. Please drive around. Actually, just park and come in.
Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
You don't usually get a stock tip from a 16-year-old, but I'm here to tell you about a different kind of stock. It's called Better Futures, a stock for social change that's not about. Instead, you invest to help students like me go to college. This is beyond a simple donation. It's the opportunity for America to invest in its kids and take an active stake in the future of the country. The return on your investment isn't money. What you get back is knowing you protected our potential. So one day, that potential can grow up to become surgeons and architects, executives and engineers, people who can change the future just by being a part of it. My name is Alicia, and I am your dividend.
Invest in better futures with UNCF. Visit uncf.org/invest. A mind is a terrible thing to waste, but a wonderful thing to invest in. A public service announcement brought to you by UNCF and the Ad Council.
I dedicate this song to recession, depression, and unemployment. This song's for you.
Today's a new day, but there is no sunshine. Nothing but clouds, and it's dark in my heart, and it feels like a cold night. Today's a new day. Where are my blue skies? Where is the love and the joy that you promised me? Tell me it's alright.
I'll be honest with you.
I almost gave up, but a power that I can't explain fell from heaven like a shower now.
When I think how much better I'm gonna be when this is over.
I smile, even though I hurt, see I smile. I know God is working, so I smile. Even though I've been here for a while.
What you do?
I smile.
Come on and
smile. It's so hard to look up when you've been down. Sure would hate to see you give up now.
God's people.
You look so much better when you smile. So smile.
Now every day ain't gonna be perfect, but it still don't mean today don't have purpose. Come on.
Today's a new day, but there is no sunshine.
KHSX Power 101.5.
It ain't easy, but
today's a new day.
Good evening and welcome back to KHSX 101.5. Keeping it 100 with 100. And you know, when we're gone, we really be having some serious conversations. And so we'll bring those up later one day. But my collegiate 100 brothers and sisters, we really definitely be chopping it up. So we got to get back into this mode of blending families. And so, you know, Contrell, at the end, what you were saying about, you know, making sure that the children in the household, you know, understand what's going on. And I started saying, you know, the families need to look at whoever the stakeholders are. And the children have to be valued as a stakeholder, you know. And if you don't know how to have the conversation with them, everybody go to counseling. Go to premarital counseling if you're ready to get married and you're talking about blending the family, you know, and go to premarital counseling, go see someone and make sure, you know, and even the kids then can say, well, you know what, at least we had a conversation, you know, and the thing is, okay, when do you do that? You do that after you've got the values and you've had a long conversation and the relationship may need to go along for a while. You know, about 3 shows ago when we had the Rileys on and we talked about families being married for a long time and they were talking about the belt lines and all that stuff, you know, so all those things need to be understood. What, you know, what's my belt line? What's your belt line? It also may mean what's the child's belt line? You know, what not to say, what not to bring up. So those are conversations and make sure that they trust The trust is there, and then the conversation is, what should that family look like? You got blended families. Do the kids like each other? Will they like each other? They need to have some conversations. They need to hang out. Just don't thrust them together. We'll we talked about, and you talking about, what would I say if a kid just cussed me out when I walk in the door? And I'm like, I'm out. Who's going to be respected? Because Tony even said, and I tried to put myself in that spot. If I would met Tony's mom and I showed up at Tony's house, I know what Tony would say to me. Tony would be like, "You just another dude."
Nah.
And now you say that because we on the show, but he ain't never met me, and I roll up in suit, nice car. You just another dude. But the thing is, then the question is respect. Respect's got to be given on all sides of the table, which means you got to respect the kids. But then we go to the question: when do you bring the kids into the conversation? You see what I'm saying? Because we talked about before, if I just met this lady or dude, how long do I wait before I introduce them? You see what I'm saying? Because bottom line is, if we don't make it and I've introduced you, then now it's like, okay, I just messed up. But if I wait too long and me and them are really cool, but then y'all don't get along because I waited too long. So what's that time span like? Is JT still on the phone, Cohen? JT,
yes, sir, I'm here.
Okay, what's that time span like? What you think?
Man, to be honest with you, it really is kind of a catch-22, because you can do it too soon, or you can do it too late. But I think one of the things that I would say that kind of put you at ease, and I'm still going to go back to it, if you've done the work as a parent to ensure that the relationship that you have with your child is healthy, because I got it. We're talking about blending families. We're talking about bringing somebody in. I think one of the most problematic things is bringing somebody else in when your end ain't even fixed.
Right.
So I think that's one of the things that, is key. So now if that mother and that son, or that mother and that daughter, man, they're on the same page, they're healed, they're singing Hakuna Matata, no worries. I think that at any point that mother introduces this guy or said guy as the new guy, it won't be a wrong time, because you have already dealt with the issues that could arise in your relationship with your child, and so I believe that's it. That would be my stab at it, because there really is no good time, there is no good time, because I think the longer that you wait, then I think it's going to be problematic, because when you hear them, you hear their name, you see their name pop up on your phone. You smell a certain smell, you see a certain commercial come on TV, you light up, and this child is like, man, what's wrong with you? And so, you're just showing the effects of the relationship. But the problematic thing that happens is that now when you introduce, your new partner to your child, then will there be an expectation for you to think that your child is supposed to match your energy? And so now I think that's where it becomes problematic, because this child, you have a track record with this person, and your child is just now meeting them. So I think that it would be almost foolish to believe that your child would have the same experience with them if you are just, you all have been dating for 6 to 9 months. And then, you're introducing your child to them on the heels of that, So I think that as long as that child is, the relationship between the mother, and the child is, and I keep saying mother, because I think that when we look at blended families, there's a huge percentage of children that are raised by their mothers in comparison to the children that are raised by their fathers. So I believe that in that instance, it's always going to be more leaning towards, us looking at the mother introducing, the new man into this space versus the new man, or the man introducing the new mother in that space. But I do want to kind of throw this out. And I think this is key for our listeners. If you hear this, I think that there has to be a level of respect that is commanded as well as demanded from a parent. Period. I'm not even going to limit it to you have to respect my new boyfriend, but I believe that if the child is respectful, the child will remain respectful even to a new person, because you don't have to like a person to be respectful. I think disrespect, to me, and this is just my opinion, I think disrespect is a character flaw that nobody on the outside is going to be able to correct. That's the responsibility of the biological parent to ensure that child remains respectful, because a new person doesn't warrant you to be disrespectful, because if you're going from the 3rd grade to 4th grade, you get a new teacher, but you don't go in on day one being disrespectful just because that's a different teacher from the one you had last year. Right.
And, and I'm going to throw a term out there always, and you hit it right on the head. And that's what we talked about before about, and I said this, that parent, if you're going to be a king and a queen, that means you should be raising a prince, which means respectful, trying to, and I always say your net worth is your network, and your net worth will equal your network, and the more you increase your network, you increase your net worth. So you walk up and be disrespectful to me, you never know when you might see me again. I might be that new principal that you come and go to school, or I might be the owner of the company that your mom gets ready to go to work for. Or I might be the owner of the company that your mom does work for. And I just might have been stopping by to say, hey, tomorrow is going to be this or this. Or it could have been anything. And that child don't even know.
Right.
Or that parent don't know. I might have been coming there to give her $1 million. And the child be like, okay, I'm out. So you don't know. So you're right, JT. The bottom line is that and that's the first thing we've got to do. We've got to be taking care of our house, so that when the door opens and the right person is there, okay, then they're willing to step in and come be that partner. But if the house ain't ready, then you're always wondering why. And you may never know. The person that something goes crazy, or somebody says something crazy when that man is sitting in the living room while you getting dressed. And then you wonder why he ain't out there when you come out. Okay. Or the dinner goes wrong, or he asks you a whole bunch of questions at dinner. And we talk about that mom because, he was picking up this, or somebody said this, or somebody did this, and so that first thing is, hey, you got to have, you got to make sure that, and it's just respectful. Tony, you looking like you had some thoughts.
I mean, I'm just listening to everything that's being said, and once again, I just really respect all the different opinions from all the different age groups. But I just think that there's just a lot of things, that takes a part of it. And just one thing too, I feel like parents do. Sometimes I feel like they have this mentality, like, I'm getting older. Like, what else do I have to lose? And they just go for it.
What do you mean go for what? Like what?
Meaning like, okay,
go for a relationship with somebody?
Today is the youngest that I will ever be, right? So meaning tomorrow and the next day after that, you only get older. So sometimes they have this mentality like, what are we waiting for? Like, let's do it. Like, let's tie the knot. Let's go for it, right? And then once again, sometimes I feel like just certain things just move
too fast.
And, everybody's pace is their pace,
right?
Too slow might be too slow for other people, and too fast may be not fast enough for some people, It is really just taking accountability in all parts, not dismissing nobody's like values, feelings, and just making sure, like you said, like the household is intact.
Well, see, the thing is, that all comes and is encumbered in values.
Mm-hmm.
It's that, it's having those conversations and getting our values, that's a question, and I'm big on the deck of cards. That's a part of my research. Whatever, y'all keep, and that's one of the questions is, how long is dating? You see what I'm saying? How long should you date? That's a part of that conversation. That's a part of that value.
Okay, so when it comes to back to that question of how long do you feel like they should date before bringing the kids, I honestly feel like only the person in that relationship knows what's best for like their kids, so my answer probably wouldn't be what works for everybody else, but I definitely wouldn't say too soon, and I definitely wouldn't say wait 9 months, because 9 months, that is a lot of time that you guys invested in each other, so I would definitely say a good couple of months, and then invite the kids, and add them to like the situation, definitely not too soon, because that can also be a waste of time as well if it don't work out.
Right. And so I agree with you about everybody's going to have their own time. So let's kind of say, once you've had the real value conversations, and maybe gone to have some counseling or go have some conversations, but have real value conversation, and for sure you can trust each other. Okay. You ain't moving too fast, and you live very similar, and you see like you're going on the same page. You're on the same page, but do get some real communication going. And I say, I'm big on the deck of cards where it asks you questions. Okay. It asks you value questions. It asks you, what do you want out of life questions, so that it makes sure that you have those conversations. Because a lot of times, Tony and Katria, what happens is, and JT, we get in these relationships and we've assumed a lot of things, because that 90-day representative that we're dating, in 90 days, they're their best representative. That representative shows up, they cooking, they cleaning, the kids are respectful. On day 91, you're getting cussed out, house is a mess, everything goes left. And then, or 2 years from now, it don't have to be 91. But if you at least have those conversations, you at least make sure that you've had those topics of conversation as much as possible, then you at least, what you should expect. Okay. And then if something goes left and you've had that conversation, then you can say, you know what, we had that conversation and you specifically said ABC. So was that your representative, or was it? But then
right.
Then without a doubt that, hey, and unless they, hey, it had some insinuating circumstances, this happened, that happened. Okay. But the bottom line is you've had those conversations. So let's say, you can trust a person, that, you've had those value conversations, below the belt, what everybody's below the belt is, belt line. We call that the belt line, and you've gone and you've had some relationships, you had some conversations. So then maybe you introduce the kids, because at least for sure that this person's values are the same, and you're going to, and then they should be respectful to the kids when you show up, and you just may take, everybody goes and meets somewhere, but that person should also want to meet your kids. You got to have the conversation about your kids, meaning that he should know. The guy who called you, Tony, should have known he shouldn't have called you. Your mom should have been like, hey, don't call him.
Yeah, man, it's been like 2.5, 3 weeks, and you're giving me the stepdad, so you ain't even a boyfriend yet.
I'm screaming.
It's levels to
like
it.
one of my daughters says, I'm dead. And I don't know why they have that statement. The kids nowadays.
I'm dead,
I had
screaming,
to stop taking
literally.
that. I had to stop saying that.
Yeah, because I'm like, why would you say that?
Don't speak that.
Yeah, because I'm like, okay, I'm dead. I'm like, okay, where does that come from, and
It's
why?
such an exaggerated expression that we use to just express ourselves.
Yes, and I'm like, okay, that's that new age. Because you're right, older people, we don't talk like that, because we like, that might happen. You put out in right. You done got a little older, Catriel, where you thinking, oh, I ain't putting that out there in the
Yeah, it just literally clicked
become
one day. I don't know.
superstitious.
Yeah, so no, I mean, we really got to think about that stuff, and bringing JT back in, so my thoughts, JT, are one, you've had those value conversations. They should come see somebody like you, that's going to hit them, keeping it 100. You're going to tell them, what they should be thinking about, and, and making sure that they have those conversations. And I'm gonna be frank, I started looking at it. If the person that when I was starting to date, if they didn't want to do the deck of cards, that was a one strike right there. That was a strike because you're telling me that you really don't want to be transparent,
right?
Or you're afraid. What's a little deck of cards gonna hurt you? You see what I'm saying? But it makes you have conversation. Well, if you think that the deck of cards are minute or not important, and I'm not saying that they're that big important, but they are. It helps a person who don't ask the right questions ask the right questions. Mm-hmm. But if you minimize it, then you're gonna minimize other stuff that I'm gonna want to do too. Been there, done that, got that t-shirt, got that mouse pad. I had that situation. You know, JT, go ahead. You wanna throw something in there? Okay, is JT still out there, Cohen? Okay, because I know he was saying he was having a hard time hearing for a second there. But so the bottom line is, you know, and so once you realize that those things are important to you and they're not important to your partner or whoever that potential person is, you need to pay attention to that. Because if they belittle it or think, okay, that you already are seeing right then and there that some things are going to be important to you that are not going to be important to them. And then when you get more entrenched, and see, a lot of times we think, oh, well, that's okay, you know, but you know, no, didn't learn that. I have learned it 100%. You know, and you have to listen to that little voice, but you don't really have to listen to that little voice or God. You know, God is saying, hey, ask the questions, be intentional, you know, and do the values. You know, am I right, ladies and gentlemen? What y'all think? Catriel and Tony? You know, I mean, I want to hear your exact, you know, thought process there. If you think that, you know, that anything should change. I hear you're back, right, JT?
Yes, sir. I'm back.
Okay. And so what I was just saying was, I was saying that, you know, make sure that we have those value, you know, conversations. And, you know, remember I told you, I'm big on the deck of cards. I'm big on the deck of cards. If, you know, we going out to date the first time, I'm taking the deck of cards with us. We're going to eat dinner and ask questions. Because I might as well get it over with quick as possible.
Not you shuffling while they bring in the
rolls.
Hey,
you know, hey, I'm flipping up. But I'm gonna tell you what happens. I'm gonna tell you what happens. The right woman will think that that's really nice because you're really trying to get to know her or him.
Right, because there's no need. Like, if you're not doing it, then you're essentially wasting time. Like, we're not on the same page.
Right. And so you might as well get to know each other as much as possible, or as quick as possible. You know, and it helps with conversation. It helps with in-depth conversation.
It also shows you how shallow some people are and how they really run from real conversation.
Exactly. And then at that point, you put the deck away and say, okay, let's finish dinner.
Yeah.
And you know, and you know, and they will be calling you. Mm-hmm. Well, what happened? Yeah,
you can answer question number 5.
It ain't gonna be like that, but it will be. But you could be simple like that, you know, or you could say, well, you know, when I asked you, did you like hanging out with your exes? The card asked you that. You go, yeah, and I said no. That was done. That was a done deal. We're in a line. Right. I'm not hanging out with my exes. Right. You gonna hang up? No, I'm sorry. You know,
that's already a problem that you foresee happening, that you could just cut it right there.
Oh yeah. And if their answer was, well, I don't see anything wrong with hanging out with exes. Oh, okay.
Good for you, sweetie.
Yeah, no, you know, and then you're like, okay, I'm done. I'm done. You know, because the bottom line is, and or if they give you, hey, you know what? I really understand that that's important to you. So if you don't want me to hang out with my exes, then I won't. And then when they do, then that means they lied. Then you out.
Now we really cutting it.
Well, then you have you have grounds, because then you're like, you don't want to come back and say, well, I'm gonna give you the benefit of the doubt, because now, you know, you didn't ask the question beforehand. Now you want to give the benefit of the doubt. Now we're just wasting some more time, because we already know most likely that it's gonna go left. Mm-hmm. Okay. So JT, you know, what's your thoughts on what I'm saying?
No, I agree wholeheartedly. You know, one thing that I would say, you know, as you mentioned about values, Darnell, I think another thing too that has to be identified is non-negotiables. And those non-negotiables are maybe, as you know, this culture would say, red flags. They have to be truly that, non-negotiable, you know, and we have to be disciplined enough and okay enough with ourselves that if a person has a non-negotiable, that we don't find ourselves always bending just for the sake of companionship. Because if that non-negotiable was enough for you to know that it was something that you wouldn't tolerate, something that you wouldn't put up with, it's not going to go away. So just because you excuse it does not mean that it now becomes something that you are going to learn to live with. It's going to always nag at you. It's going to always question you. It's going to always disturb your peace. Mm-hmm. And so at the end of the day, the best thing to do from jump, if dominoes, Uno, whatever you got to do, you sit down and you determine if this person is for me, and not just for my now, but for my future. And so I think that has to be something, because again, now this kind of goes back full circle as we continue to talk about this blended family. If they don't match up and meet your standards, why in the world do you think that they're going to be any different for your child?
Mm-hmm.
If you're raising your child correctly, because they should be coming up similar to you, but better than you.
Right.
So the levels, you're right, JT, go ahead.
Yeah, no. And I was just saying that I really believe that is, you know, one of the things that we have to make sure that we are not guilty of is settling, you know, because I think that hurts everybody that's in the relationship. You know, nobody is really satisfied. Nobody's really pleased. You know, I would rather have 100% of nothing than to be in a relationship where I'm not getting back what I feel that I deserve, you know. And so I think that has to be the case. And then, you know, kind of from the words of Maya Angelou, you know, when somebody show you who they are, you know, believe them the first time. If somebody show you that they're brown, you know, stop trying to spray paint them and have a gold tone on it.
No, that's a good one.
They brown.
That's a good one. That's a good one. You know, that's a good one. And, you know, and I hate to say it, but, you know, a lot of times when we start relationships, we've got rose-colored lenses on. And when we've got those rose-colored lenses on, we're looking at them. Oh, you're so cute. Oh, you're so handsome. You're so, you know, and we ride with that for a long time. And if we're not having real conversations and really getting a clear picture of who that young lady and who that man is, then what's happening is we're still riding with the rose-colored glasses on. And when they break one of those pieces of glass on you, then you're like, oh, I thought, well, then when they knock the whole thing down, then that person is no longer visiting. Now they at the house, and now you see who they really are. And like you said, when they show you who they are, it's too late. You've been riding. You know, now, okay, let's talk about logistics. Now you've gotten a habit of being with this person for however long. And remember I said 17 times putting your watch on left hand or right hand. Now you've got to break the habit of this person, which means the breakup is even harder because you've gotten used to being with that person. Okay. And then you feel bad about telling them that you got to go. Okay. And, or you've got them entwined in your life. You didn't introduce them. You know, you didn't introduce them to your friends. You didn't introduce them to your kids. And now this person shows up and you're like, oh man, you know, I thought, you know, and then then the whole thing is tougher to deal with. But if you have those value conversations in the very beginning and have those, you know, non-negotiables on the table in the very beginning, and then you both make sure that, hey, you know, what are your non-negotiables? What are my non-negotiables? So we're summarizing, and then we talk about making sure that all the, you know, shareholders in the house, we're on the same page. So, you know, you have those conversations about how do you raise your kids? If you had kids, how would you raise your kids? Let's say we're talking about we don't have any kids. Let's say we're talking about just a king and a queen. But let's say we do have kids. Well, you know, what's your thoughts on corporal punishment? What's your thoughts on, you know, a kid go sit in the corner, you know, if he does something wrong? You know, what's your thoughts on the kid throws the laptop off the table and you tell him go sit in the corner? What do you do if that happens? Nah, we already done. We done because because if you think that's what should happen to that child, I don't know. You understand what I'm saying?
Mhm.
I'm from old school.
Yeah, I don't believe in no
That's
sit in
not
the corner.
happening with me, JP. Okay.
That's a shortcut.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Okay. I was wondering how y'all gonna roll that, but and I'll be frank, me and my son have different conversations than me and my father used to have. Okay, and I had to understand that he is from a different set. But there are conversations, and I had to tell him lately, I'm like, hold on, there's a non-negotiable. There, when I tell you something, this isn't a question because he's still in that mode. But then I make sure that I give him the big picture. I'm like, okay, dude, you're questioning what I'm telling you, but let me tell you why. Like JT says, what's the why? And even though, because he's extra, I'm giving quotes if y'all don't see this, he's extra smart. He went in, he got a question. I'm like, okay. But at some point, dude, I'm cutting that off. You're 15. You need to hear me, and I'm going to just give you an example of one of the conversations I'm having. So you don't think I'm, way out left field talking about safety these days. I said, man, you need to watch the news sometime. At least to watch the trends of what's going on around here. Well, I don't need to watch the news. I don't know what I want to watch the news for. Do I need to watch it? Dude, I'm telling you. I said, okay, how many kids of your age have gotten shot and killed in the last week and a half? I don't know.
Last night.
At least 7, 8, or 10 kids have gotten his age, 14, 15, and 16. Been in stuff. And I'm like, I'm not saying I'm thinking you're going to get involved in that, but you need to know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you know what's going on around you. And so I'm like, no, dude, I'm telling you, yes, you need to start watching the news sometime.
No, that's real. Remember that was me at 16. It's not too far from his age.
And I tell him, you don't have to be the guy in trouble to get shot. You don't have to be we're gonna be around somebody that gets into a fight. Yeah, there could be a fight across the room, but you ain't paying attention to it.
Mm-hmm.
And then somebody comes up and sprays the whole place.
It's called an innocent bystander.
Yes.
Yep.
And I told him, I said, okay, so what I'm telling you is, no, you need to pay attention to surroundings. And then, yes, you need to watch news occasionally on what's going on in the community.
But that's how spoiled we are, though. You know what I'm saying? How our parents kind of shelter us from that part of the world. But there's that other part of parenting where I'm not a parent.
No, go ahead.
Where parents have to, be like, no, dude or daughter, whatever, you have to pay attention to like what's going on, because the sad reality of the situation is that although mom and dad is Superman and Superwoman, right? But they're only Superman and Superwoman when you're with them.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? They cannot protect you from the world when you are not with them. You know what I'm saying? So it's just very imperative that they do pay attention to their surroundings, whether you were born in the best neighborhoods and you've always had it best, but when you get around the rougher neighborhoods, you still need to understand street smarts and stuff like that.
Need to pay attention, and they get, and so I'm like, okay, I'm telling you, that's what you need to do, because I'm not in a point where, you could be riding in a car with somebody, or you could be at a party, and he was saying that, we had this conversation regarding just getting into what do you call that? When I want you to do something and I'm trying to force you to do it, you my friend.
Peer pressure.
Peer pressure. He goes, peer pressure ain't the same anymore like it used to be, because we don't care that much. I'm like, what? He goes, yeah, we don't really care about what other people think and what other people. I go, I'll say, okay, I can hear you. But the bottom line is I need for you to pay attention, because your boys could be wanting to stay because we're all dating and chasing this or doing that. But you feel like, hey, it's time to roll up out of here.
And that's where the growing and the mentoring still needs to happen, because although he thinks like that, all of his peers are not going to think like that.
Exactly.
And that's what's going to separate him from those others, because I used to, from LA, I had a lot of knucklehead friends,
right.
But I was scared of doing the wrong stuff, of dealing with my mom, right?
Right.
Some people don't have to worry about them like the same parenting to go home to, that their mom or dad is going to get in there, but they don't have that same, you know what I'm trying to say? I don't
right.
really know
you don't
how to
have that
phrase
same parent pressure,
yeah,
or that same responsibility to what's happening at the house, and we'll take it back to, that's a part of parenting that you need to know if your blended other potential partner is doing with their children. Mm-hmm. And so we're back to value conversations, value situations, and having conversations about how you raise your kids. And that even makes more things intricate. you know, and you can say, hey, my son he's now 24 years old. You know, he's about the size of a football player, and you know who I'm talking about. And he don't mess with, you know, he don't take no stuff. So, you know, I'll introduce you to him, you know, when the time is right. And just leave it at that. JT, what you got to say? I know you know I was talking about Tony.
It's painting me a monster.
No, man, I agree 110%, man. You know, we are living in a very interesting time, you know, and I really feel that it is that guidance that comes from home, and our children really have to be aware of their surroundings, you know, cognizant of what's going on. You know, me kind of doing the work that I do in the Greenspoint area with our nonprofit, you know, I'm always having to be at prayer vigils. I'm always having to be, you know, talking to young men as well as young girls, you know, who their friends have been on the wrong end of a situation, you know, even if it's peer to peer, you know, if it's on the back end of, you know, drugs. And I mean, it's very crazy, but even crazier, I'm having conversations with kids that's 13, 14, 15. And you can see that there is a difference in these children simply because of the difference in their household. Going back to what Tony said, you know, my biggest issue was, you know, my parents. I never forget, man, my dad, when I was leaving from Rogers Elementary in Scenic Woods, in the back of Scenic Woods, I was getting ready to go to BC Elmore, which was in City Gas. Now thinking about how huge Houston is, man, that was around the corner. But it felt like I was going to a totally different side of town. But as I entered into the 6th grade, I was in the same district that my mom had been teaching in. She ended up retiring of 40 years of service, but I think at that time she may have been teaching, you know, almost like 20 years. And so my dad, like, looked me square in the face day one. I'm fresh to death. Can't wait to get here and meet these new people. Oh, man, put the fear of God in my life. Said, hey, boy, your mama last name Johnson. She worked her behind off to make a name for herself. Don't you dare think that you are able to go and ruin her name because you go into a new school. Now get out there and act like you got some sense. Man, that dude messed up my whole first week of school. But again, it was knowing that I'm more concerned about what's going to happen in that house, not anything that's going to happen outside the house. But it's what happened in that house that caused me to live or have standard morals outside of the house. So I think that you'll never be able to go past that point. Now going around full circle, coming back to that family, there will have to be some conversations like that. There's real men will have to get in a young man's face and have a conversation like that.
No, you're right. You're right. And that's iron sharpening iron, you know, and so when we talk about 100, you know, and we talk about, you know, our diamonds, you know, what makes a diamond in Collegiate 100 is pressure. You know, it's having those conversations, you know, and that, you know, that's okay. We're back to what we talk about. 100 is about making the family stronger. This is what the whole series is about, that the family is the most important thing, the strongest thing in the world. You know, and you know, and the bottom line is, if, you know, if we're going to make things happen, we need to start it here. We need to start it for us, you know. So I'm going to reiterate, friends and family that are out there, push this out to 10 friends and family and have them push it out to 10 friends and family. And I'm expecting Catriel and Tony have already done that. And I know JT does on a regular basis, and I know I do. And we're going to start streaming from our Facebook live pages in the near future. And I'm going to say, Tony, you did a Instagram last time we were here, and then they put that up on 100 Black Men's Instagram. I want to say thank you. Yeah. I didn't. I was like, where did this come from? I know I didn't do it.
I didn't even see that. Okay.
Yeah. It was on 100 Black Men's Instagram. And so the thought is that, you know, we are our brother's keepers. Mm-hmm. And so we're here to build the community. We're here to rebuild the family. and start building the families in some cases. And so this is what this is all about. This is who we're supposed to be, and this is who we're supposed to be for each other and to each other. And if we're not, then what are we? We've always gotten involved in things, in sports, in corporate America, in everything. And, and when we get involved, we take it to the next level. Am I right, ladies and gentlemen?
Yes, sir.
So this is us taking it to the next level, and this is who we're supposed to be. So getting back to, blended families and, that whole other side of, and we haven't talked about the discipline in the house. So we talked about if a kid comes up and just cuss me out and what I'm going to do, and we've confirmed that I'm out.
Yes.
No deck of cards, no conversation need to be had. I already know we got a problem. But then who's disciplines? Okay, let's say we blend and let's say we're in the household together. See, then the problem becomes who's going to discipline? And then it's like your kid, my kid.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I'll give y'all a real problem. I had a situation happen one time. So nice big old house, even had a, person taking care of the house occasionally, once or twice a week, person come in. So this lady's child put a tinfoil something in the microwave.
Oh shoot.
Now, what was the reason?
Hold on. Hey, don't know.
So,
there was somebody in the house.
They didn't know.
Hey, that wasn't even a problem.
When I was told how to use the microwave.
See, that wasn't even a problem. Okay, but the bottom line, blew a hole in the side of it. Okay,
of the microwave.
Literally. Hold on.
Microwave?
This was a built-in microwave in a nice kitchen.
I'm starstruck. I'm a little flabbergasted,
dude. So hold on. Blew a hole in the microwave, right?
Yes.
So I come home and I'm like, what's happened? Nobody knows what happened. Nobody knows what happened. He didn't do it. Okay. Now, the cleaning lady, she's like, he did it. Because she ain't taking the blame for it. Because it's going to come out of her check.
Right.
He, straight up, I didn't do it. So she comes home later, right? We are a blended family to some extent at this point. And I'm like, your son blew a hole in the microwave. And he's saying he didn't do it, but of course we know he did because he's the only one here. If she'd have handled that right, if she'd have been like, hey, I'm gonna talk to him, or brought him out and we talked to him together, say, hey, you know what, whatever, whatever that was, okay. But to allow the lie to occur,
mm-hmm.
and then don't do anything about it,
mm-hmm.
and then be like, well, you already, what you just did was, one, you disrespected me because I am the other parent of the house and I'm paying for this bad boy. And
it dismissed you.
Exactly. Oh, thank you, Tony. And you dismiss how I'm feeling about this. And I'm not saying that you might, you should, if I was wrong, stand up for your child.
Right.
Okay. So I'm not saying don't do that.
Mm.
But when you know I'm right.
You can't stick up for them when they're wrong, though.
Right.
That's the way it should be. What you say, JT?
It's a blended family.
No, go ahead.
Though. It's a blended family. So it's like my mom, she's had a boyfriend, right, that I absolutely loved in the door. If he was right and he was telling me something, my mom gonna keep doing what she's doing. Like it's none of her business because she's telling me something right.
He's telling you something right.
Something right. He's not telling me nothing wrong. Somebody's coming at your child wrong or the wrong way, of course. But if they're wrong and they're telling them right, you have to be able to be receptive. Even though that is your child, you have to be receptive because when you always take up for the kid, right? Whether the kid is right or wrong, the kid is going to use that to his advantage down the line.
Every time.
Because now at this point,
they're gonna play you against each other.
I don't care who you are. My mom, so my mom gonna save me anyway. Or all right, you know what I'm saying? He may act like he's bothered while you're there, but don't worry about it. You're all good. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you still giving them reassurance to still do what they want to do. And if it's blended, like JT said last week, when you put everything in that blender, it's supposed to be all one color. Meaning that if I'm telling you something, you telling me something, everybody should be receptive to it. Whether I'm your biological dad or not, we're a family.
Okay. You know what? I wish you'd have been around then, Tony, because that went left. And it took me longer to get a divorce, and we were married. So yes, and that wasn't the only thing that happened.
Of course.
But the bottom line was that was a piece of the values that I learned later. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
And those that's a part of that value conversation. You know, and because I'm like, no, you know, and it wasn't that he should have got a whooping for blowing out the microwave.
Accountability.
He should have got a whooping for lying.
Absolutely.
Okay. That's my thing. It wasn't about, hey, okay, you know, it's a conversation about the microwave. Hey man, you can't put tin foil in the microwave.
Right. You didn't know. Okay.
Right. Okay. But I'm a lie and stick to the lie and then roll with it. And then you come home and you stick to the lie too.
So he was the only one there. I mean, like Casper there, just in the middle of
dude, we, you know, we had a child and the child was too young. So it was just a cleaning lady and him. And after that, I'm like, okay. And so what that did was, so the big picture, and you always hear me talk about the big picture. The big picture was in my back of my mind. I'm like, okay, I'm already starting to see some challenges, some problems. And when that starts to happen, now my mind is thinking, okay, what's next? What's going to happen? Because I already see that was a challenge.
It'll make me feel like, okay, if this is just a microwave, what if there's some down the line where it's a real situation? You know what I'm saying? More serious than just a microwave. And you're going to continuously save him, or he's going to continue to lie. And it still puts me in this predicament, because if you save him, that already lets me know that I can't really be honest with your kid. You know what I'm saying? Because you're going to save him.
I'm going to give you another one in just a second. But go ahead, JT. Oh, yeah. My research is also part of my history. You want to add something in there, JT?
No, man, I agree wholeheartedly, man. You know, and there has to be a synchrony of sorts. Kind of like old school Nick Cannon and Drumline, one band, one sound. If there ever is a different beat, or if there's a different cadence, to Tony's point, that child is going to lean on that and use it to their advantage. And it's going to be problematic in the future, because if we continue to feed that, or if we continue to allow that to happen, then what's going to now transpire is that when there really needs to be a real conversation of accountability, or maybe it is something that is out of that parent's hands that was trying to shield and protect that child. Now I want to throw them off on you. But because I have always come in as a buffer, don't talk to my child like that. Don't raise your voice at them like that. Then now you have silenced the other parent. You have taken their voice away. So even if they open their mouth and say something, it doesn't carry any validity, because you have taken that authority away from them. So I always say, you know, even when I counsel couples, especially from this, because this is even a piece that I actually share in our premarital counseling, because I don't marry people if I can't counsel you. Because I would rather you deal with all of the issues up front than to now throw off my batting average and, well, Pastor Jay married you, but, you know, you ain't going to last long. No, we're going to have this conversation up front. Right. But in our third session, we talk about blending families. And we talk about it's the 4 F's, faith, family, finance, and fun. And if you can learn how to balance all of those F's, then you won't get an F on your marital report card. But that's even in a home where the husband and wife, y'all are the original. Like, this ain't no blend.
Right,
you
right.
have
So,
to have,
hold on,
you have
go
to
back
have
and
that dynamic.
Repeat that again. Faith, family, finances, and fun. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, and if you can master those F's, you'll never get an F on your marital report card. Faith, always keeping God center, and not leaning towards or promoting, you know, any different religion. But I will say that you have to have some type of spirituality in your relationship. 2, family. That family dynamic has to be on point. We don't necessarily have to have gender specific roles, but we really don't need to cross over in each other's lanes. But a woman will always be that nurturer, and the man is really always going to be that protector, and he's going to teach that other young man how to be a man. Then the other F is finance. Man, if your money ain't right, your honey ain't going to be right. And being fun, you got to learn how to keep fun in the relationship, because when the relationship becomes mundane and it feels are going to be looking outside of the door.
That's right. You're gonna be looking for something else instead. And you know what? And so that right there gives us the values that we should be talking about when we're meeting. I mean, that goes for the Collegiate 100 too. What's your faith? What's that? You know, we talked about that. What does the family structure look like? What does the family look like to you? You know, and have that conversation. And then finance, you know, what do we believe about finances? Do you believe in saving? Do you believe in having good credit? Do you believe in finance? And good credit is a part of finance, whether we want to believe it or not.
Right.
Because you're either paying more or you paying less. And you know, and then what's fun to you? You know, how do you keep fun? And remember, one of the things that the Riley's family said a while back was, what are things you can do that don't cost any money? What are things that you can do that you both have in common? If it's just walking down the beach, you know, if it's you know, jacuzzi on weekends, if it's a swimming pool, what are those things that you can do that you both like to do that will keep you in those times when it gets tough? In those, you know, in those conversations. And then, you know, you got to figure out what the kids want to do too. So, you know, that's a part of that value conversation. You know, what do your kids like to do?
Mm-hmm.
So then we're like, okay, now I've got a real conversation and I've learned a lot. And now I'm like, okay, we can introduce each other to, you know, and then we talked about, you know, family, you've got to talk about, you know, that discipline piece. What does that look like? You know, do you spank? No, I don't spank. I put them in the corner. How many times you have to put your kid in the corner? About 5 times a day. Yeah, no, I'm out. Because it really must not be working. Okay. Or that you just don't agree with that. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And you know, in some cases that may be good, you know, depending on the child. And then you'll see when you get to the house. You know what I'm saying?
Child and situation.
That's so funny to me. Just sitting in the corner, man, raised by a grandma who had a paddle ready.
Dude.
I don't think I've ever been sent to a corner, but I think my mom did a good job at knowing when she needed to explain something. And again, her saying was, you don't get in trouble for what you did, you get in trouble for lying. But having a conversation and getting a whooping. So I think you just need to.
I think what the question is at what level did they lie or right? And then because it's like if they make a mistake,
right?
It's
you
one
know they're
thing.
Still learning,
right? It's intentional. If it's intentional, then it's another challenge.
Oh yeah.
And then how big was that intention? You know what I'm saying? And then you're gonna lie about it. Oh no, then I'm stepping to you. Then you know, you 15, 16, I'm stepping to you at that point. You know, and I've had to. And I'll be frank, you know, my ex didn't understand why I had to be like, no, dude. You know, and then he wanted to get kind of bulk up. I'm like, you know, I had to use an N-word. Be like, nah,
well,
brother.
Because if you don't do it, then somebody else is gonna do it in the real world. That was always a phrase I was taught in school, out of school. Like, if you don't get a handle on it now, or if I don't correct you now and show you the correct way to do anything, somebody else is gonna do it.
And if there's no consequences
right
to what that child does, they think there are no consequences. And then that's when that grandmother or that mother's talking about, my baby didn't do that. And then while they put him in the car,
right.
You know, to go to jail.
Here's the pattern of the last 17 years.
That example that you just used where you say you had to step up, was this with your own or is this with the blended?
Oh no, this is my own.
Okay.
This is my own. And you know, and so I had a history one for you. So back in the day, it's way back in the day, it was a potentially blended. We were dating. And see, my thing was, and this is where my mistake was, I would just, hey, her kids, my kids, I just take them to the park, take them to picnics. I take them, I don't even say picnic, take them to the park. And we'll talk about that thing. Why I don't say that word anymore.
Yeah.
And waterfalls or, you know, go out to eat.
Mm-hmm.
And so one day I'm driving to that person's house and there's police cars all around the house. Yeah. And I'm like, I drive up. I'm like, what's going on? And so I get out and you know, and they had it roped off. And so then she had a son and a daughter.
Mhm.
And so the son had said that somebody had ransacked the house and had and put him in a closet. And the person had a 2-finger glove, like, you know how Batman back in the day when Penguin
Not the
had
Spider-Man hand.
No, that was Penguin's hand. That was Penguin's hand. It was 2-finger glove. And so of course he's all nameless. So I'm like, and I tried to tell her then, I said, you know what? You got a problem. Because I'm hearing you.
This is
I'm seeing you.
Was this an extravagant lie?
Oh, let's put it like this. It was so extravagant that there was at least 7 to 8 police cars there, and that they had ransacked the house, and that this, and she believed it. She believed it. I'm gonna move forward real quick. 10 years later, of course, we're not together no more. 10 years later, she calls me and says, I almost went to jail the other day. I'm like, why? Because my son lied on me, and he told the courts that this, and this happened, and it ain't never happened. Now, this kid is pretty much grown.
Right.
And she had to spend several $1,000s to get out of that. So
those habits that could have been corrected and
back
escalated
then,
now that child is an adult. You created a monster.
Exactly. And so he went to live with his dad and blah, 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 blah. So the dad and the son became, their worst enemy. And she was the nicest person. And I'm like, I tried to tell you. I tried to tell you. But, that call came and I was like, oh, really? Oh, okay. I'm sorry to hear that.
Sometimes people act very naive and, or delusional to their own kids, like they act like their kids aren't capable of doing X, Y, and Z.
Sometimes they really don't think so.
Yeah, right.
But if you're not raising them, and JT, you can jump in anytime. If you're not raising them right, then when that right person shows up, they're going to be out because they those red flags are like bombs to the right person. You know what I'm saying? Boom. Oh, you just threw that one. And I was, and I drove up and I'm driving a nice car during the time. So the police are looking at me like, well, okay, who are you? And it was a nice neighborhood. And I'm like, well, I'm the boyfriend. And I'm like, okay, nah, sorry.
You're not gonna have me as a suspect now.
So JT, what we're gonna close this out. So non-negotiables. Families, hanging out with families that you like, making sure that the belt line is there, making sure that the value conversation is had about faith, family, finance, and fun, and have a deck of cards on deck. I'm not going to give up on that. What you think, JT? We good with that?
I think that's it, man. I think that's it. And whatever you come up with, own that. Don't back down. Don't move around. If this is what you are looking for, stay true to that.
That's right.
It's going to come.
That's right. Because when you give up your morals and you give up your change and you think, oh, well, he won't. No, 9 times out of 10. But you've also got to put yourself in positions to meet more people. Don't think they're just going to show up at your house.
Yeah.
Get involved in the community. Get involved in 100. Get involved in, in making things happen in the community, and you'll end up finding someone. If you like being involved in the community, then you'll find somebody who likes being involved in the community. But if you continue to just sit there and think that that's just going to show, no, and you got to be around people and those families and those friends that are that will help you during the tough times. Catriel, your last thoughts?
I agree. I agree with everything. I also want to say the faith, family, finance, and fun.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm gonna start calling that the 4 for 4 now.
The 4 for 4.
That's what's up. 4 for 4.
The 4 for 4.
Okay. The 4 for 4. Okay. Tony.
Yeah. I usually pretty much agree with everything, but I would just say respect, the proper amount of vulnerability and transparency, values, morals, and just not being dismissive. Dismissiveness equals people shutting down and becoming more nonchalant in situations, so I would say just respect those things, and I feel like everything else should naturally align with one another.
And use your slogan that you told me, having a hard conversation now.
We just have to normalize having uncomfortable conversations to prevent confusion later.
That takes us home. I think that says it. Thank you, JT. And we'll look to hear Connie. We'll let Connie hear this show. She's at a convention, I think. Again, so she's
trying
out.
to get like her, man. She just been running the world this summer.
She's been all over the place. She's constantly going someplace. So we'll say something to Connie and JT. Is if that was your last statement we just got from you? You got anything else you want to add?
No, I'm good. I'm good, man. Great show, man, and definitely miss being in the studio because I know that energy is real, man. But glad to have been able to be a part of this.
Yeah, man, we miss you. Yeah,
your phone presence was just as impactful.
Yeah, but I feed off his facial expressions a lot of times. I be looking at him like, okay, he chomping at the bit. I
feeling like I'll be in church when he be here.
Oh, you do? Okay, that's good.
He rubbed that goatee, man. He's about to give us that word.
And you ain't never lied. I'm gonna start paying attention to that.
You know what? That's telltale. That's
Body
being
language.
observant, Tony. That's being observant. All right, thank you. And that's keeping it 100 with 100 on KHSX 101.5. Cohen, take us out. Thank you and have a good evening.
KHSX Power 101.5.
Change me, oh God. Make me more like you. Change me, oh God. Wash me through and through. Create
Wake up, everybody, no more sleeping in bed. No more back thinking, time for thinking ahead. The world has changed so very much from what it used to be. There's so much hatred, war and poverty. Oh, wake up all the teachers, time to teach a new way. Maybe then they'll listen to what you have to say. They're the ones who's coming up, and the world is in their hands. When you teach the children, teach them the very best you can. The world won't get no better if we just let it be. Na, 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 na. The world won't get no better. We gotta change it, girl. Just you and me. Wake up with all the darkness, make the old people wear.
Power 101.5. Houston, Texas.
Brothers and sisters, I want to welcome you back to life. Back to the one that can make your next chapter your best chapter. Hallelujah.
How can it be that you love the most unlovable part of me? How could you see was the only